welcome to the Deep Dive. We're diving into nanotechnology today. You sent over some fascinating articles and research, so let's get right into it.
Yeah, it seems like you're really interested in how nanotechnology is being used, which is great because it's already having a huge impact.
Oh, definitely. I was reading one article that mentioned smart fabrics, and honestly, the idea of clothes that can monitor health or even generate energy, that's pretty amazing.
It's really incredible how science fiction is becoming reality, isn't it? But I think before we get into those futuristic applications, maybe we should define what nanotechnology actually is.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Essentially, it involves working with materials at an incredibly small scale, the nanoscale, which is a billionth of a meter.
Wow, okay, so we're talking about manipulating individual atoms and molecules. I can't even picture that.
It's pretty mind-boggling. But the really interesting thing is that at that scale, materials actually behave differently, and we can actually change their properties by manipulating them at the nanoscale. Things like their strength, flexibility, conductivity, even how they react with other substances.
So it's not just about making things smaller, it's about giving them entirely new abilities.
Exactly. You mentioned those smart fabrics earlier. By weaving in nanoscale sensors and electronics, we can create fabrics that can interact with the wearer and their environment.
Like workout clothes that can monitor heart rate and breathing, or jackets that can charge your phone using solar energy.
Exactly. It sounds straight out of a spy movie, right?
It does.
But this technology is already being used in everyday products. You know how some eyeglasses don't get smudged or scratched as easily?
Yeah.
Well, that's because of a nano-thin coating that makes them more durable and resistant to dirt and water.
Oh, so that's how those coatings work. I've always wondered about that.
Pretty neat, huh? And that's just one example. Nanotechnology is being used in sunscreens to make them more effective and transparent in sports equipment to make it lighter and stronger. It's already all around us.
So what about electronics? I'm really curious about how nanotechnology is being used in that area.
Yeah, great question. It's completely revolutionized the electronics industry. Think about it. Our smartphones, laptops, TVs, they're all powered by microchips that contain billions of tiny transistors.
Right, and I've heard those transistors are getting smaller all the time.
Exactly. And that's thanks to nanotechnology. By shrinking the transistors down to the nanoscale, we can fit more of them onto a single chip, which means faster processing speeds and more powerful devices.
So those incredibly thin and flexible screens we're seeing now, those are also a result of nanotechnology.
Absolutely. They use special nanomaterials that allow the screen to bend and flex without breaking. And that's opening up all kinds of possibilities for the future of electronics. From foldable phones and tablets to wearable displays, even things like electronic tattoos.
Wow, it's amazing how far we've come in such a short time. But what about areas like medicine? How is nanotechnology being used to improve healthcare?
Well, nanotechnology has the potential to revolutionize medicine in some incredible ways. One of the most promising areas is targeted drug delivery, particularly for treating diseases like cancer.
I've read a bit about that. The idea is to use nanoparticles to deliver medication directly to cancer cells, right?
Exactly. By encapsulating drugs within nanoparticles, scientists can target them to specific cells or tissues, minimizing side effects and improving treatment outcomes.
So it's about delivering the right dose to the right place at the right time and doing it with less damage to healthy tissue.
Precisely. It's still early days for this technology, but the potential benefits are enormous. And it doesn't stop there. Researchers are also using nanotechnology for regenerative medicine, using nanomaterials to create scaffolds that help repair or even regrow damaged tissues.
Wait, so you're saying nanotechnology could help us regrow organs?
It's not science fiction. Scientists are already using nanomaterials to help repair bones and cartilage, and they're even working on developing techniques to grow entire organs in the lab.
That's incredible. Nanotechnology is really blurring the line between science fiction and reality. It's not just one technology, it's more like a toolkit for manipulating matter at its most basic level.
That's a great way to put it. And that toolkit is being used to address some of the world's most pressing challenges, like the need for clean and sustainable energy.
I know solar panels are becoming more efficient and less expensive because of nanotechnology, but how exactly does that work?
Well, traditional solar panels are made with silicon, which is expensive and energy intensive to produce. With nanotechnology, we can create solar cells using much less silicon, or even entirely new materials that are cheaper and easier to manufacture. Imagine being able to print solar cells just like we print newspapers. That could make solar energy accessible to a much wider range of people and help us transition to a more sustainable future.
That would be a game changer. And what about batteries? I know there's a lot of research going on in that area too.
Absolutely. Researchers are using nanomaterials to develop batteries that can store more energy charge faster and last longer. Incredibly important for things like electric vehicles and portable electronics, but it could also revolutionize how we store energy on a larger scale, helping to make renewable energy more reliable and efficient.
It's amazing to think about the impact nanotechnology is having on so many different areas. We've talked about healthcare, electronics, energy. What about the environment? How is nanotechnology being used there?
Nanotechnology is also being used to develop solutions to environmental problems. For example, researchers have created these nanofabric paper towels that can absorb massive amounts of oil.
I remember reading about that. It's amazing how something so small can have such a big impact.
Yeah.
Are there other environmental applications?
Definitely. Nanotechnology is being used to develop more efficient water filtration systems, sensors that can detect pollutants in the air and water, even breaking down harmful chemicals into harmless substances.
It sounds like nanotechnology is really helping us address some of the most critical challenges facing our planet.
It has tremendous potential. But while we're talking about all these amazing possibilities, it's important to remember that with any powerful technology, there are potential risks and challenges that we need to address.
Absolutely. We've seen that scientific advancements can have unintended consequences, so it's crucial to consider the benefits and the potential drawbacks.
Exactly, and that's something we'll be diving into more deeply later on. But for now, I think it's fair to say that nanotechnology is a truly fascinating field with the potential to transform our world in countless ways.
I completely agree. Speaking of transforming the world, you sent us some information about a program at McGill University that focuses on nanotechnology.
Right. It seems like you're interested in maybe studying nanotechnology, and this program looks like a fantastic way to do that.
I'm especially interested in learning more about the program's interdisciplinary approach. It seems like it allows students to explore nanotechnology from different angles.
Yeah.
Which makes sense considering how widely applicable it is.
Yeah, it does seem very comprehensive. It's called a minor in nanotechnology, and it covers everything from the creation and characterization of nanomaterials to their applications in various fields like biomedicine, electronics, and even environmental science.
That's impressive. The course list has some really interesting options like engineered nanomaterials for biomedical applications and nanomaterials and the aquatic environment.
Those do sound fascinating. It seems like the program really gets into the specifics of how nanotechnology is being used to solve real-world problems.
So let's say someone completes this minor in nanotechnology. What kind of career paths could they pursue?
According to the program, information graduates could go on to careers in research, engineering, medicine, and even business development, all within the field of nanotechnology.
So things like research scientist, materials engineer, or even a nanotechnology consultant.
Exactly. It seems like this minor could be a great foundation for a career in a really rapidly growing field. But before we start talking about career paths, there's one more aspect of nanotechnology we need to explore: the ethical considerations.
That's a really important part of the conversation. We've been discussing all these incredible possibilities, but what are some of the potential downsides or unintended consequences of this technology?
That's what we'll be discussing in the next part of our deep dive. We'll be looking at some of the ethical challenges posed by nanotechnology and how we can ensure its development and use is responsible.
This is definitely a conversation you won't want to miss. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. So we're back, and now it's time to dig into the ethical side of nanotechnology. You know, it's one thing to talk about all the amazing things it can do.
Yeah.
But we need to think about the potential risks and challenges too.
Yeah.
Right?
You're absolutely right. It's such a powerful tool, and like any powerful tool,
Yeah.
it can be used for good or for bad, you know?
Right.
We need to be really careful and thoughtful as we develop and use these technologies.
One of the first things that comes to mind for me is the potential impact of nanomaterials on human health. You know, these particles are so incredibly tiny.
Right.
Could they pose a risk if they get into our bodies or, even into the environment?
That's definitely a valid concern, and it's something that scientists are actively researching. Some studies have shown that certain types of nanomaterials can be toxic to cells or accumulate in organs.
Oh, wow.
But it's important to remember that not all nanomaterials are the same.
Okay.
Their properties and their potential risks, those vary a lot depending on their size, shape, and chemical composition.
So it's not a simple yes or no answer.
Yeah.
It all depends on the specific nanomaterial and how it's being used.
Exactly. It's kind of like thinking about a knife. right? A knife can be used to prepare food, but it can also be used as a weapon.
Right.
It's the same tool, but how it's used determines its impact. Nanotechnology is similar. It can be incredibly beneficial, but we have to be very careful about how we develop and utilize it.
That makes a lot of sense. So how can we make sure that nanotechnology is used safely and responsibly?
Well, there are several key approaches. First, we need more research to really understand the potential risks of different nanomaterials, and how they interact with biological systems. This research will help us develop guidelines and regulations for safe production, handling, and disposal of these materials.
So it's like doing our homework before we release these technologies out into the world.
Exactly. We also need to be really transparent about the use of nanomaterials in consumer products. People have a right to know what's in the things they use,
Right.
especially if those products contain materials that could pose a risk to their health or the environment.
So that brings up the question of labeling.
Mhm.
Should products that contain nanomaterials be clearly labeled as such?
That's a really big debate right now.
I bet.
Some people argue that mandatory labeling would create unnecessary fear and confusion, while others say that consumers have the right to know and make informed choices about the products they buy.
Yeah.
So transparency and open communication are key.
It seems like this is an area where we need to find a balance. Prioritize safety, but also make sure consumers have all the information they need.
I think that's right. What about the environmental impact of nanotechnology? We talked earlier about how it can be used to clean up oil spills and filter water,
Yeah,
but are there any potential downsides there?
that's a good question.
Just like with human health, the environmental impact of nanomaterials really depends on a lot of factors.
Yeah.
Some nanomaterials could build up in the environment and have effects that we don't anticipate.
Oh, wow.
We need to study these potential impacts and figure out strategies to minimize any negative consequences.
So it's all about weighing the benefits against the risks,
Yeah,
making sure we're not creating new problems down the road.
precisely. And that's why ongoing research and monitoring are so important.
Okay. So beyond the health and environmental stuff, are there any other ethical challenges that we should be thinking about?
Absolutely. One that's a real concern is the potential for nanotechnology to make existing social and economic inequalities even worse.
How so?
Well, imagine if the benefits of nanotechnology, like advanced medical treatments, enhanced communication technology, or even things like increased food production were only available to a small group of people. That could create an even bigger gap between the haves and the have-nots.
That's a really important point to consider. It's not just about developing the technology, but also ensuring that everyone has equal access to its benefits.
Exactly. We need to think about affordability, accessibility for everyone, regardless of their income or location or social status. Otherwise, we risk creating a world where the people who are already privileged get even more advantages, and those who are struggling fall even further behind.
So that makes me wonder who gets to decide how these technologies are developed and used.
That's a really big question. We need to have open and inclusive conversations about the future of nanotechnology.
Yeah.
And that means involving not just scientists and policymakers, but also the public. Everyone should have a voice in shaping this technology and how it impacts our lives.
It seems like this conversation is much bigger than just science. It's about ethics and social justice and making sure the technology really serves all of humanity.
You hit the nail on the head. Nanotechnology has the potential to be an incredible force for good in the world, but only if we use it wisely and responsibly.
That's a great point to keep in mind as we continue this deep dive. We've talked about the incredible possibilities, but also the potential pitfalls. So where do we go from here? What does the future of nanotechnology hold? And what steps can we take to make sure it's a future we can all be excited about?
That's what we'll explore in the final part of our discussion.
Okay.
We'll look at some of the exciting trends and research directions in nanotechnology.
Okay.
And discuss how we can work together to shape a future where this powerful technology benefits everyone.
This has been such a fascinating and thought-provoking conversation. It's clear that nanotechnology is more than just a scientific field.
Yeah.
It really reflects our values and our hopes for the future.
I couldn't agree more. It's up to all of us to make sure that this powerful tool is used to create a better world for everyone.
We'll be right back after a short break to continue our exploration of nanotechnology. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So we've spent this episode exploring the world of nanotechnology. We've seen how it's being used in everything from smart fabrics and flexible electronics to targeted drug delivery and clean energy solutions. But we've also talked about the importance of, responsible development and addressing those ethical challenges.
Right.
So now I'm wondering, what's next? What does the future hold for nanotechnology?
Well, the future of nanotechnology is full of possibilities. It's such a fast-moving field. There are always new breakthroughs happening. One area that I'm really excited about is the convergence of nanotechnology with other advanced technologies, like AI and biotechnology.
Yeah, I've heard a bit about that. How are those technologies coming together and what kind of impact could we see?
Imagine using artificial intelligence to design nanomaterials with very specific properties. Instead of just trial and error in a lab, AI algorithms could analyze huge amounts of data and actually predict how different nanomaterials are going to behave.
Wow.
And that could really speed up the process of discovery and lead to the development of totally new materials with capabilities we haven't even imagined yet.
So we could have AI helping us to engineer like the perfect nanomaterial for a particular application.
Exactly. Whether it's a more efficient solar cell or a drug delivery system that targets only cancer cells, AI could help us unlock the full potential of nanotechnology.
And what about when we combine nanotechnology with biotechnology? What kind of possibilities open up then?
The possibilities are really transformative, I think. One area that's getting a lot of attention is the use of nanotechnology in gene editing.
I've heard about that. What's the connection there?
Well, gene editing allows scientists to make very precise changes to DNA sequences. And nanotechnology can play a crucial role in making gene editing more efficient and safer. We could use nanoparticles as tiny delivery vehicles to transport gene editing tools to specific cells in the body.
So instead of editing genes in a lab, you're saying we could potentially correct genetic defects or treat diseases like right at their source inside the human body.
That's the idea. There are still challenges, of course, but the potential benefits are huge. Imagine being able to treat genetic diseases that were once considered incurable, or developing therapies that are tailored to a person's individual genetic makeup.
It sounds almost too good to be true, but it's becoming a reality. But as we push these boundaries, it seems even more important to think about the ethical considerations. How do we ensure that these technologies are used responsibly for the benefit of everyone?
That's such an important point. As we explore these possibilities, it's essential that we proceed cautiously and keep ethical considerations at the forefront.
Yeah.
We need to have those open discussions involving scientists, policymakers, ethicists, and the public to guide how these technologies are developed and used.
It's a good reminder that scientific progress needs to be balanced with thoughtful consideration of the potential consequences. We need to use this knowledge wisely.
Absolutely. The future of nanotechnology is in our hands, and we have to ensure that it's a future where this powerful tool is used to address global challenges, improve human health, and create a more sustainable and equitable world.
Well, this deep dive has been an incredible journey into the world of nanotechnology. We've learned about the basic principles, the amazing applications, and even the ethical considerations that will shape its future. And it's clear that nanotechnology has immense potential, but it's a potential that we have to harness responsibly.
It's been great exploring this topic with you.
Likewise.
And remember, this is just the beginning. The field of nanotechnology is constantly evolving. Who knows what incredible discoveries are waiting for us?
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting to think about all the possibilities.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely walking away with a sense of wonder and a healthy dose of caution.
That's a great perspective to have.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of nanotechnology. We hope you've enjoyed it and learned something new.
Until next time, keep exploring the wonders of the unseen world.
From all of us here at The Deep Dive, thanks for listening.